They say grief makes the world quieter. They're right. 18 months after my wife died, the ranch didn't echo anymore. No laughter bouncing off the barn walls. No coffee cup waiting on the counter. Just wind through the grass and 30 head of black Angus chewing slow. Same as they always had. That morning started like every other. Sun barely up. Frost still clinging to the pasture. I was pouring feed when I heard engines that didn't belong. Not tractors. Not ranch trucks. Bulldozers. I stepped out of the barn and saw them. Yellow machines chewing into my pasture like it already belonged to someone else. Diesel smoke rolling thick. Tracks crushing grass my cattle needed to survive. And standing there by the fence line, phone raised, filming with a smile like she'd already won, Cordelia Whitmore. She didn't even look surprised when I yelled, "Hey, this is private land." She turned slowly, expensive sunglasses on, white Tesla parked behind her like a status symbol on wheels. "Good morning, Dutch," she said sweetly. "Progress waits for no one." I walked closer, heart pounding. This is working ranch land. You don't have permission to be here. She held up a stack of papers like a weapon. "Oh, we do. Recreational easement. Perfectly legal." Then she leaned in, voice dropping, smile sharpening. "Your wife's been dead for years, darling. Time to modernize and join the real world." That sentence landed harder than any punch ever could. Behind me, the herd shifted. 30 prize black Angus lifting their heads. And at the far end of the pasture, Taurus stood still. 2,200 pounds of muscle. My champion bull. 6 years owning that field like a king. Cordelia followed my gaze and laughed. "Relax. Your cows can graze elsewhere." Cows. She climbed into her Tesla and waved as the bulldozers kept moving. That was the moment I understood something important. This wasn't about a bike path. This wasn't about community. This was a land grab. And Cordelia Whitmore had just declared war on the wrong man, on the wrong land, with the wrong bull watching. Be why the next morning, the bulldozers were gone. The damage wasn't. 2 deep concrete scars cut straight through my pasture like open wounds. Fresh tire ruts. Crushed grass. Survey flags flapping like they owned the place now. Cordelia hadn't just crossed my land. She'd marked it. That afternoon, the first letter arrived. Certified mail. Return receipt. Thick envelope. The kind people send when they want you scared before you even open it. Inside was a cease and desist claiming I was interfering with approved municipal infrastructure. Apparently, standing on my own land and telling strangers to leave was now illegal. Signed by an attorney named Marcus Webb. Never heard of him. Quick Google search told me everything I needed to know. Office address? A strip mall wedged between a nail salon and a payday loan place. Nothing screams you're screwed, like legal threats printed next to neon signs advertising cash advances. The letter demanded I remove all livestock from the recreational corridor, cease verbal interference with contractors, allow immediate continuation of construction, or face fines, daily fines, and possible seizure of agricultural assets. In plain English, move your cattle or we'll move them for you. I stood at the kitchen table holding that letter, staring at the chair across from me, Sarah's chair. For half a second, I caught myself thinking, wait till she hears this one. Then the quiet came crashing back. That's when the second letter arrived. Then the third, every Tuesday, like clockwork. Noise complaints about cattle lowing at dawn, odor violations, claims that my livestock created psychological distress for nearby residents. One letter actually said my bull was menacing joggers. Joggers. The only people anywhere near that fence were Cordelia's hired surveyors, trespassing, wearing high-vis vests, and acting shocked when a 2,200-pound animal didn't appreciate strangers stomping through his feeding ground. And Cordelia filmed everything. Every confrontation. Every raised voice. Every reaction. Edited clips started appearing in the neighborhood Facebook group. Local rancher threatens community progress. Unsafe livestock near families. Is Willowbrook Heights at risk? She framed herself like the victim, me like some backward obstacle holding back civilization. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was strategy. Cordelia Whitmore didn't bluff. She buried people in paperwork until they broke. But she made one fatal assumption. She thought I didn't understand the law. What most folks don't realize is easements aren't magic spells. Just because some dusty document mentions your land doesn't mean anyone can do whatever they want on it forever. Emergency access easements? Those are for fire trucks, ambulances, police, not joggers, not cyclists, not concrete bike paths with Instagram hashtags. Recreational use requires new consent, written, notarized, voluntary. And I never signed a damn thing. So I drove into town and hired Mackenzie Reeves. Agricultural law, 20 years. Sharp as a fence post and twice as stubborn. She spread Cordelia's paperwork across her desk, glasses low on her nose, eyes scanning fast. "Show me the consent," she said. I handed it over. She stared at the signature. Then she laughed. Not amused laughter. The kind that means someone just ruined their own life. "Dutch," she said, tapping the page. "This isn't your signature." I leaned in. It was close, but wrong. Misspelled middle initial. Slanted strokes I never used. Pressure marks inconsistent. Forgery. "Emergency easements can be converted like this," Mackenzie continued. "And whoever signed this spelled your name wrong." She held it up to the light. "This isn't a legal document. It's evidence." That's when the fight shifted, because now it wasn't just about land. It was fraud, and Cordelia had left fingerprints all over it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Taurus was watching. Every time a contractor truck slowed near the fence, he lifted his head. Every time a car honked, he squared his shoulders. That bull had ruled that pasture for 6 years. Nothing shiny rolled through without his permission. I started paying attention. Because when someone declares war on your land, you defend it with everything you've got. And Taurus didn't like intruders. Mackenzie didn't just stop at the forged easement. She dug, and what she found explained everything. Cordelia Whitmore wasn't just some overzealous HOA president. She was a former corporate lawyer who didn't retire early like she claimed. Her California law license had been suspended 3 years earlier. Ethics violations, forged client signatures, misused escrow funds. The exact same behavior. She was now pulling on my land. She never told Willowbrook Heights any of that. She moved states, reinvented herself, and slid into HOA leadership where power comes easy and oversight is non-existent. That bike path? It wasn't community improvement. It was leverage. Because once concrete goes down, property values shift. Zoning changes. Developers circle like vultures. And my pasture sat right in the middle of it. Meanwhile, Taurus was getting restless. Every new stake, every new survey flag, every unfamiliar vehicle near the fence. He didn't charge yet. He just watched. And that's when I realized something Cordelia never did. You don't rush a bull. Cordelia escalated. I complied. She demanded I secure my livestock. So I upgraded fencing. Perfectly legal. Perfectly compliant. She complained about cattle visibility near the easement. So I moved Taurus's feeding area directly beside the fence line. She wanted peace and safety. I gave her procedural obedience. Meanwhile, I started conditioning Taurus. Not aggression. Association. Car alarms during feeding. Luxury car sounds. Rewarded movement toward the noise. Nothing illegal. Nothing cruel. Just livestock training. Cordelia kept filming. Posting. Provoking. She thought I was cornered. I was preparing. Next came the environmental attack. Flyers everywhere. Contaminated water. Agricultural runoff. Community health risk. She hired an environmental consultant. Turns out he was her brother-in-law. Fake lab. Fake data. Fake credentials. Real fraud. The real test, state certified, proved the opposite. My cattle improved water quality. The HOA's chemically treated lawns were the problem. Cordelia didn't back down. She doubled down. That's when desperation showed. My water trough were sabotaged. Oil. Then my truck tires slashed while I was at my wife's memorial. Security guards appeared. Unlicensed, paid with HOA money, criminal records. One of my cows took a pellet round. That's when Mackenzie called federal agencies. Because this wasn't HOA drama anymore. It was organized harassment. And Taurus? He noticed the tension. Animals always do. Forensic accounting blew the case open. Nearly $900,000 stolen from HOA funds. Fake vendors. Inflated invoices. Personal expenses hidden as community development. Her husband's tech company was failing. My land was the exit plan. The bike path wasn't for bikes. It was access. And the Oak Grove, where I scattered Sarah's ashes, right in the development zone. That's when I understood. This was personal. Annual HOA meeting. Packed house. Cordelia walked in confident. Tesla parked beside my pasture fence. She took the podium. Started talking about progress. Mackenzie stood up. Then the FBI. Handcuffs clicked. Cordelia panicked. She ran and hit her Tesla panic alarm. That alarm tone carried across the pasture, across months of conditioning. Taurus lifted his head. I opened the gate. He didn't hesitate. 2,200 pounds of muscle met aluminum and glass. No people hurt. No chaos. Just destruction of property. Expensive, loud, undeniable. Phones were out. News cameras rolling. Cordelia screaming. Federal agents unmoved. 7 years federal prison. Restitution. Asset seizure. New HOA leadership. The bike path rerouted. Legally this time. A memorial bench by the pasture. Taurus became a legend. And the ranch? Still quiet in the mornings. But peaceful again. People assume quiet land is empty land. They see grass. Fence posts. A few trees. They don't see history. They don't see grief. They don't see the reason someone wakes up before sunrise every single day and walks the same boundary line, like it's sacred ground. This land wasn't just where I lived. It was where my wife's ashes were scattered, where my mornings were silent on purpose, where nothing moved unless it belonged there. And that's exactly why she chose it. After Sarah died, time didn't stop. It just lost its edges. Days blended together in a way that made calendars feel pointless. Morning came whether I wanted it or not. The sun rose over the pasture the same way it always had, spilling light across the grass like nothing had changed. But everything had. I moved back to the ranch full time because cities felt too loud after that, too crowded, too full of people rushing to places that didn't matter. Out here, the rhythm was simple. Feed the cattle, check the fences, walk the pasture, sit on the porch with a mug of coffee that went cold more often than not. And Taurus, my black Angus bull, became part of that rhythm. He wasn't aggressive by nature. He was big, yes, massive, over 2,000 pounds of muscle and bone. But he was calm, observant. He watched everything. Animals do that when you don't rush them. They notice patterns long before people do. Back then, the only thing Taurus watched was the wind. Willowbrook Heights didn't exist when I bought the ranch. It was just open land back then. Rolling green pasture, thick oak trees, and a creek that cut clean to property like it had been there longer than memory. Then the developers came. They always do. Rows of identical houses appeared one by one, like someone had copy-pasted suburbia onto land that didn't ask for it. White fences, perfect lawns, mailboxes lined up like soldiers. At first, it didn't bother me. The boundary lines were clear. The fences were legal. The land surveys were old but solid. We coexisted. I kept my cattle on my side. They kept their kids and dogs on theirs. For a while it worked. But neighborhoods like that don't stay satisfied for long. They grow. They expand. They start looking sideways. And eventually, someone decides that quiet land must be wasted land. IT started with survey flags. Little orange markers pushed into the grass near my eastern fence line. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surveyors screw up all the time. I'd dealt with it before. Called them, showed them the deed. They apologize, pull the flags. Everyone moves on. So I walked the line one morning and pulled them out myself. Didn't think twice about it. The next day, they were back. More of them. Closer. That's when Taurus stopped chewing and stared. Not at me. At the fence. 3 days later, a black SUV rolled up to the gate. Clean. Expensive. Out of place. A woman stepped out wearing press slacks, designer sunglasses, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't introduce herself at first. She just looked around like she was already deciding what didn't belong. "Good morning," she finally said. "I'm Cordelia Whitmore, president of the Willowbrook Heights Homeowners Association." She said it like it was a title people were supposed to recognize. I wiped my hands on my jeans and nodded. "Morning." She gestured vaguely toward the pasture. "We're planning a community improvement project." That was the first red flag. People who want permission don't start with conclusions. Cordelia explained it like it was already approved. A walking and biking trail, community wellness, property values, connectivity. She spoke fast, confident, like someone used to talking over objections before they formed. According to her, the path would briefly cross my land along the eastern boundary. She said briefly the way lawyers say temporarily. I told her no, not angrily, not emotionally, just no. She smiled again. "We believe there's an existing easement." There wasn't. I'd memorized that deed after Sarah died. When you lose someone, you cling to what you can control. Land records are very clear when you actually read them. I told her that too. Her smile tightened. "Well," she said, "we'll follow up." And just like that, she got back into her SUV and drove off. No argument. No negotiation. Which should have told me everything. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. Cease and desist. According to the HOA's legal counsel, I was interfering with a legally established easement. The document looked official. Stamped. Signed. Confident. It was also completely fake. The parcel number was wrong. The county seal was outdated. The signature belonged to a lawyer who'd been retired for a decade. This wasn't a mistake. It was a test. And they expected me to fold. Here's something people don't like to admit. HOAs don't go after the loud ones first. They go after the quiet ones. Widowers, retirees, people without a spouse to back them up at meetings, people who look tired. Cordelia assumed I was tired. She assumed grief made me weak. She assumed I'd take the payout, move, and disappear. And for the first time since Sarah died, something inside me clicked awake. Mackenzie Alvarez answered on the second ring. She specialized in land use, easements, and HOA disputes. She also didn't sugarcoat things. When I emailed her the letter, she laughed. Not kindly. "This isn't just invalid," she said. "It's sloppy." That surprised me. Sloppy people don't usually move with confidence, which meant someone else was writing the script. And Cordelia was used to getting away with it. While the paperwork stacked up, the physical pressure increased. More flags, more survey trucks, unmarked vehicles slowing near the fence. Taurus noticed all of it. He didn't charge. He didn't panic. He stood exactly where the fence line met the pasture and watched. Every morning, every evening. Like he understood something I hadn't put words to yet. That this wasn't just about land. It was about dominance. The final straw came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the barn when I heard metal scraping. Fence cutters. By the time I reached the eastern boundary, 2 men in reflective vests were already working. No permits posted. No marked company truck. I told them to stop. They said they had authorization. I asked from who. They didn't answer. They just kept cutting. That's when Taurus stepped forward. Not charging. Just standing. 2,000 pounds of living boundary line. The men backed up fast. And in that moment, watching the retreat, I realized something important. Cordelia Whitmore had no intention of resolving this legally. She intended to take it. And she had no idea what she'd stepped into. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sun disappear behind the trees. The pasture was quiet again, but it wasn't peaceful, because now there were lines being drawn, on paper and in the dirt. And once that happens, someone always crosses one.